Catherine, I'd like to start with 1992, the live relay of Tosca with Domingo, which was a sort of breakthrough for television because it was live and it was actually in situ in each of the three locations. I don't know how many people here actually saw that at the time or have seen the DVD since. It was an inspirational piece of television. But I think Placido Domingo and Catherine together in that production was pretty phenomenal. What do you remember about that?
What don't I remember? It was an incredible experience for me. I would call it one of those can't be missed once in a lifetime kinds of experiences. And in fact, it could have been missed because it was if I accepted, I realized I would be doing my very first Tosca in a situation that was terribly exposed. I had actually been offered a Tosca for a year later in France, which would have been my first Tosca. Actually, that didn't happen, but I did do the live Tosca in Rome. So that was a huge decision, to decide to do my very first Tosca in these circumstances. But I threw caution to the winds because I thought this project was so extraordinary that if I didn't do it, some other soprano would do it, and I would just regret that. And so I decided, okay, it might as well be me. And really, typically of many things I've done in my career life, I knew full well that this could be a failure, but I didn't really worry about that because I decided, yes, it could also be a great success. And so I took the risk and decided I should do it. And there were many amazing things that happened in that project. Even things like the moment when the cameras, the lights all blue, and the connection between where we were filming and the orchestra was, which was not in the same place, lost connection, and this was just prior to the telecasts. So it was quite a disastrous evening, but the usual Italian miracle came together and everything worked at the last moment. What I remember most was the feeling of going through Tosca's day, all of us. In other words, as in the Puccini opera, which, after all, you can't really have that same 24-hour sense because it happens in the space of 3 hours. But to be really a part of this production and go through the 24-hour day with the drama was incredible. I also remember the excitement of being in 1800 and 1992 at the same time, because as we prepared in whatever circumstances for a dressing room we had, let's say the Sant'Andrea della Valle, the church, we were at a little Italian hotel, a very modest one down the block from the church, getting ourselves ready, being prepared with makeup and hair, and then walking out into the streets and meeting the Italian citizens there by the church, who were, of course, absolutely beyond excited, but also treating us like we were Tosca, Cavaradossi, Scarpia, come to life. And we felt that. We felt like we walked out of 1800 into 1992 through the streets and then into the church and went right back into 1800.
But I think what is remarkable about your production, and more about this later, is that it really does feel like 24 hours. I've never known a production where I felt that the journey of Tosca really is a living journey and you feel the journey of that 24 hours.
Well, that's a great compliment. Thank you very much. But one of the things that struck me about trying to bring this Tosca to life, and when we were talking about it in the last couple of years when I was working with my designer, was this whole idea of how do you bring three very, very different locations together in a theatrical production. And these three locations are very, very diverse. The church, the Palazzo Farnese, the Castel Sant'Angelo, they are not at all alike in any way. And yet, and there is that feeling, as you say, some kind of a expanse of time, but also expanse of history. And we made very strong decisions to stay rather, let's say, traditional, in the sense that we wanted our sets to have a reference to the places that I performed in, but not be so slavishly echt and in details. So we didn't try to create Castel Sant'Angelo exactly, or Palazzo Farnese exactly the way I performed it in that particular room. What was more important to me was the psychological feeling of those spaces.
I mean, just to go back a few years, when I suggested Tosca to you, what excited you about the idea and what worried you about the idea?
Oh, I think it worried me more than excited me at first, because I think Tosca is one of these really difficult operas to do. What worried me was I didn't want it to look like every other Tosca. On the other hand, there are certain ideas put forth in the libretto which are impossible to ignore, like location, time, and so on. Many productions have tried to break away from the 1800 time period and do, fascist period Tosca, but I never felt that those are very successful. I also wanted to have a Tosca that had a sense of beauty about it. That excited me. What excited me foremost was the idea of bringing some of the feelings that I was lucky enough to experience in that particular film. Such things as being at the top of the Castel Sant'Angelo, looking at the expanse of the sky at 4 o'clock in the morning, and recognizing that when you stand there on Castel Sant'Angelo, all you're aware of is the universe above you. Even during the daytime, that's all you're aware of is the expanse of sky. And that's what we strove to do with this production, was to give the cosmos, the universe, the void, the vuoto that Puccini speaks of, a great dominance in the third act.
I haven't asked this before, Catherine, but at what stage in your career did you think you would move into directing? Because there are very few singers who have gone into a directing career. I mean, at what stage were you thinking about it?
I didn't think about it until I began teaching. And it was in the midst of teaching, and I began teaching about 12 years ago, so I was still deeply involved in my singing career, very active all over the world. And at that time, people who were studying with me had to actually travel to wherever I sang and catch me between performances or during rehearsal periods and such. But it was in certain situations, actually, you will remember very well, one summer when I did a seminar, a week-long seminar at Indiana University.
Yeah.
And I did what I called revealing the actor-singer within. About 10 years ago. That was one of the key moments where I started to realize that the kind of work I did as a teacher was more than halfway the kind of work that a director does.
I mean, Catherine's teaching is extraordinary, not just in terms of interpretation, but in terms of fantastic technical detail and know-how. And what I want to ask you is that taking on Tosca, coming into the rehearsal period with Julian and Amanda, two younger generation singers, are you completely hands-off from a vocal point of view?
Yes, totally.